Thank you for joining us on 24 Plus. I am ABC 24 anchor Pepper Baker. This is a big election year for Shelby County, and we're doing our part to keep you informed so that you can make the best choice come Election Day. And one of the biggest races that's going to be on the ballot come May 5th is the race for Shelby County Mayor. We've been profiling all the candidates, and here at the table with me now is Memphis businessman Rusty Qualls. Mr. Qualls, thank you so much for being here. Is businessman the right term to use for you?
Yes, that'll be a correct term to use for me.
Okay, perfect. So the burning question I think everybody wants to know when I talk about the candidates is who is Rusty Qualls?
Well, who is Rusty Qualls? I come from a very rural area down by Vicksburg, Mississippi. I'm a hardworking young man. I always believed in putting my hand to the plow. I am a proud father. I am an active minister as well. And again, like I say, I'm just a hardworking young man that's looking to bring change to Shelby County. You know, continue to pave the way for the future, you know, if that makes sense. If you really want to know more about Rusty Qualls, just reach out to me, have a sit down, do like what we're doing now, so people can have a better understanding, a better gist of who I am. You know, I'm just what we call a small town kid with a big heart, that's looking to be able to share his heart with Shelby County.
Okay, I love that. That's a great message. A relatable one I think everybody can get behind. Why do you think now is the time to run for Shelby County Mayor?
So I think the time is pressing right now when I look at everything across the board. We talk about, inflation, and not just towards money, but inflation when it comes to job loss, inflation when it comes to, crime rate, inflation when it comes to senior citizens not being able to take care of themselves. And so just looking at everything across the board, I think now is the time for someone to stand up from among the people that understands, and not only just understand, that live their life and understand what it takes to make those changes, right? Like I said, I come from a small town, working hard, knitting with a lot of people, listening to the community. I've talked to about 3,000 people over the last month or so, and they echoing the same. We're looking for a change. We're looking for a government that actually work for us. And so I want to be that beacon, for the people to stand up and actually work for the people.
Okay, yeah, we'll get into the specifics, but a great start here. So you are from Mississippi, the town exactly?
Greenville, Mississippi is where I spent a bulk of my childhood at.
Wonderful. And when did you kind of get to Memphis, or what was the journey there, or why did you choose to settle in Memphis?
And so, again, I was working, just a little backdrop, I was working as a general manager, building boats and barges, and, we were seeing the downward spiral a little bit where we was, and then we had kids, so we wanted, and I touch a little bit on it more so in the questions later. We had started having kids, and so we wanted to our kids to have a better education, a better start than we did. And so my wife, that's not only my timekeeper, but that's who I listen to the most out of, just about everybody. And she said it's time for a change. And we just tried Memphis, Tennessee, and Memphis was great to us. We was able to build, become business owners, help the community. And so we were just looking at change, want to be able to do better, not just for ourselves, but just for our family.
Wonderful. So how long have you been in Memphis now?
I've been in Memphis roughly about 25 years.
Okay, so you have a lot of, you have kind of a dynamic experience here. You are a minister, you're in ministry, and then you also are a father and you're a business owner. So I do want to kind of get a little bit more into your background. You mentioned relocating from Greenville, Mississippi to Memphis, but what is the business that you and your wife have started, or what can you kind of tell me about the experience from that makes you feel prepared to run the county?
And so our primary business is tax service, but we have multiple businesses. And so just going through the experience of trying to, not really knowing a lot of people here in Memphis because we wasn't natives. So just trying to build the connections, learning the lingo, just trying to get everything off the ground. And if anybody know anything about small businesses, they know the effort that it takes. You have to do those things yourself. If you got to be the CEO, the CFO, the bookkeepers, and those type of things. And so we learned those experiences and to be able to have a better a better business. And so I think that going through that learning curve prior to me working at a high level within some businesses, it gave me more of a legit to understand what it takes to actually run a business. And so we just want to be able to, take those skill sets and level set across Shelby County to be able to help drive a better business.
Okay, and what was the moment where you pinpointed, or just when did the thought of running for Shelby County Mayor come into fruition? Like, when did you exactly decide that this was what you wanted to do?
And so it was almost about 2 years ago, and talking to some really close friends and just listening to the community. They say, oh, I think you'll be a great fit. And I sat back, I chewed on it, I regurgitated, right? Reprocessed it, talked it over with the family, see how did they feel about it. Especially my wife, because this is a lot of exposure coming from the private sector. And so just having that real moment was when I was talking to a young group of teens, and they really said something that really piqued my interest and said that the government or the people really don't care about us. And so I just wanted to be able to step up and continue to show them that there is somebody here, that really care about you and really ready to make those sacrifices. Like I said, me and my family, we already talked about, we understand it's a big sacrifice. And then my wife understands sometimes, like, if I may say, like a dog on the bone. And I get so focused on just the task at hand and to, I be in a whole separate world, but there's nothing wrong with it. I want to be able to make sure that I'm able to execute on what I'm trying to deliver for the person that I'm trying to help. Yeah. And so it was just the things that I was hearing from the active youth, doing the mentorship and talking to them, and, some of the elderly people and mid-age people too. And we're just saying that they just looking for a change and somebody who's going to, dedicate themselves to their cause. And so that was one of the moments for me that to say, hey, Rusty, I think you need to, spread your wings a little bit more, and take on a little bit more ownership of what you're actually doing.
Sounds like you got perspective from a wide range of voices when you talk about young people to the middle age and then elderly there. So that's always good. Perfect segue into the next question. Just what would you kind of pinpoint as Shelby County's top issues? So,
I think it's sporadic. But I think what's at top of the list is the crime, and I understand what that stems from. But that's education and having something to do, reform, being proactive, and I think that's something that I always been doing, being proactive, getting into the community to sort of help drive some of that down from a different cause. Again, like coming from the private sector is a little different. All those things that you don't do in front of a camera, you don't do when people are applauding you. And so that's, just looking at and talking to like some of the people like repeat offenders, talking to them and, trying to help them so they won't go back out into the community and doing those type of things. And so I think being proactive instead of being reactive to a lot of the things that's happening within Shelby County and the surrounding areas would be a whole lot better if we focus on trying to drive the crime down, but having something else for them to be able to do. It's kind of hard, and I talk to a lot of people, and I help a lot of people. It's kind of hard when you have something on your background and you want to be able to have a decent job to try to provide for your family. Mm-hmm. And so looking at, and I just, they call it keeping it real, and they say I got to feed my family. And not trying to justify those type of things, but we have to be proactive before they make those decisions to be a repeat offender or to be a first-time offender to go out and do those things. We have to be, the bridge to build that gap to allow them to be able to help take care of themselves.
Yeah, so you did mention crime here. So I've been in Memphis now 3 years, and that's always seemingly made the headlines in the news market here is crime. And now, even more so than ever, the Memphis Safe Task Force is in town. Mm-hmm. So, what are your thoughts? The current county mayor was very vocal about his opposition against the Memphis Safe Task Force in town. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about this federal partnership and how they've kind of come into Shelby County or Memphis in particular? Just what are your thoughts on just having that law enforcement presence on the streets?
Yes, let me say this first. I think it should have been a better partnership before we got to the point of where we was, because everybody was already conscious of what was going to happen when it came to the task force. And so I think it should have been better partnership between the federal and the local level to understand what was actually coming. You know, do I agree with, you know, some of the target areas that they're in? No. You know, do I find sympathy and empathy for the people that are saying, you know, we love them, we can get out and shop, we can do those type of things? Absolutely. You know, but I just think it should have been better partnership, better awareness on what was coming into our county. And that way I think we could have, you know, handled the situation a lot better before it spilled over into our communities the way that it is. So I just think it should have been better partnership.
Okay, so would you say that you would have an emphasis on collaboration in a way that kind of, I guess the wording would be just works in favor for everybody?
For everybody.
Okay.
For everybody.
Okay, fair point. So one big thing I think the next county mayor is going to have on their plate is whether or not a new jail, a new 201 Poplar is going to be top of mind or a priority. What are your thoughts on a new 201 Poplar? Should the jail just be a repurposed building that already exists? Have you given any thought to how you would tackle a new jail?
So much thought.
No, I'm sure.
So much thought. And like I said, I like to be transparent. And so when we talk about a new jail, we need to be realistic with everybody. And so looking at that, that's a 10-year, maybe 12, 15-year window to be able to gain the revenue to be able to do that. You know, I would like to see it repurposed instead of trying to, you know, come up from scratch and try to come up with different type of funnels to be able to get revenue to build those. But I would be in favor of, you know, repurpose it. I think we have enough surrounding partners that will hold some of the inmates until we get it back up to speed. Right, and I think doing repurpose, I think it costs less to go up than out, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that if we repurpose it and go up with it and make those true investments, and again, like I said, I looked at just about every piece of documentation that's public source, and when you look at our securities, you know, some of those bonds are not coming to full maturity. We're cashing them out just a little bit early. You know, and I think if we let some of those come to maturity, then we should be able to focus on some of the things or put those at priority to be able to get those things resolved for Shelby County.
Okay, you are a numbers man having to deal with business and a business that is kind of rooted in finance as well. So I'm sure you have good perspective on that. Let's talk about economic development since we are on this kind of just section of what your investment or priorities would be in development. You know, what are your strategies on bringing businesses to Memphis and Shelby County? And is all business good business? Is all money good money, or are there some that you would maybe shy away from? And
so, again, we have to be able to show the blueprint when we bring in or soliciting business to come to Shelby County. You know, we have to be able to show them that this is a place that has plenty of opportunity and growth. And so we have to come together to be able to showcase that outside of crime, right? Because businesses take a look at that too before they want to bring that into Shelby County. And, you know, to answer your question, is all money good money? No, it's not. You know, because when I look at that, and I worked in logistics for over 20-some years too prior, on top of still running my business, so I got a chance to be able to see what some of the business does when it comes to active youth and some of the people that actually work there too. And so when we look at are they invested, you know, are you going to pull within 10 years, or do your business plan meet the needs of the community or the people that actually reside here? You know, are y'all going to create programs to be able to further help in their education? You know, do they really have the best interests at heart, or are they just looking for, you know, a cheap piece of land? I just be honest, right? I may get slapped on the wrist for this, but it's fine.
You say keep it real.
You know, are they just looking for a cheap piece of land and they're looking for cheap labor? You know, and like I say, I worked in logistics for a while, and I have seen, you know, people underpaid and people underdeveloped. You know, we call it coming across, receiving a diploma, coming straight into the workforce. And a lot of people just didn't have the adequate skills to be able to maintain just the basic skills. And so that was, you know, not to get too far off topic, you know, but that was, you know, primary my focus when I worked in logistics, to be able to help, you know, people to be able to achieve what they wanted. Right? Because I always tell them that I'm not always going to be here, right? And I always tell them that, you know, I have to teach you how to lead in my presence so you'll better lead in my absence. And so, you know, looking at those type of things, but look into the portfolio. What's their track record? what do they offer? It's just more than them getting a piece of land. Are they going to truly be invested into Shelby County? And I think that's some of the things that, some of our current local government needs to look at. I don't have any stake in that. I'm considered what they call an outsider. But I am a citizen. I am a voter, and I want to be able to, bring what's better for here for Shelby County. Like I said, not all money is good money, and that's not only just in business, in personal life too, right? And I think that, we just need to come together as a unity and start looking at some of these things that's coming to Shelby County, and they need to be, truthfully honest, high yield paying jobs. We look at what's coming in to say $21 is feasible income, and that's just coming in. But when you're looking at the expense part of it, it equates to only $3 and some cents if you're making $21 an hour. So we have to be really invested, not just in current state, and then we see the inflation with the tariffs and all those type of things and how that's trending. And so maybe we just need to look at 6 years from now, what does that look like? Do we invest into business coming here that's going to pay people more than $21 an hour? Are we going to invest into them to help develop the future, because they're the future, right? And so we have to, be real meticulous on what we look at and what we allow to come into Shelby County.
So with that in mind, I'm going to get specific here with Elon Musk's XAI. A billionaire comes into Memphis or Southwest Memphis, and there's healthcare concerns with that, but there's also an appeal with investment and how much money could be brought in and tax, right? All of that. I'm not the best financial person, but you are. So, but he's a billionaire. How do you go up against something like that if you did not think it was in the best interest of Shelby Countyans or Memphians? How do you go up against a billionaire and his company if you felt like it wasn't right for your constituents?
And so again, it takes all of us, and not just one voice. When we come in harmony, we echo the loudest. And so everybody has to come together. And again, I talk to a lot of people, and sure, it brings health issues, but when you ostracize it down and look at the core of it, some of the rodents and all those type of things are coming over. The deers are getting hit 2-3 times a day over there, so you have to clean up, and it's, driving the value down and driving people out. And so again, sure, he may be a billionaire. Last time I checked, close to a trillionaire, but, it takes all of us and not just one person echoing one thing and another one going in a different direction because they're looking to, capitalize on the back end of the investment that's coming here. And so we have to, again, all of us have to stand up and talk together, go over into the community. I'm over there, so you have to go over there and talk to them and hear some of their heartfelt messages. And, we make the decision on what comes to Shelby County, and we have to stand up together, and that's the only way we're going to be able to build a brighter future.
Okay, so you do talk about, coming together, all standing in one, but there's been some tension between the current mayor's office and other governing bodies with the commission, as well. So how would you describe your ability to bring people together? Do you have successful partnerships with other elected leaders or other governing bodies within Shelby County?
Only just a few. And again, I think that's built over time. And then we have to be able to understand it's not me against you or you against me. We have to come together to be able to build a brighter, Shelby County. And we have to, put our own differences aside because we're not the only one affected by it. We look at all the way down. There's some child that, just may be sitting at home watching this right here. He may be affected by it too. And so we have to put those things aside in order to work together to be able to bring a better Shelby County. Some of the things that I did in the past to be able to do that, when I worked in, high-level logistics, we will have, 2-3 meetings a week. I know a lot of times it didn't feel comfortable to everybody, and that was across Canada, Texas, California, the whole Mid-South. And I would put that together, and we would have meetings, at least twice or sometimes 3 times a week, and to be able to come to an agreement. Because, and I understand the pushback between the current mayor and some of the other individuals, but it's a bigger picture other than that, because lives are impacted by that. And so when we think about that, that should be our, especially as a elected official, that should be your top priority, is think about the people that's affected by what the decision that you're making, not communicating. And, one of the things, when I was doing 3PL, starting up those facilities, I wouldn't decouple from them too early. If you know anybody that knows me, like I said, I done worked in the whole Mid-South, and I always go back, right? I always go back and check out, how the individual doing, how the department doing. And it's about not decoupling from the assignment too early, because sometimes when the bookmark date, just say tomorrow is the end date, nobody step back and check and see how that process is going, how the individual is doing. And so I always go back to make sure, they still trending north, and if they need any type of support, then I'm always willing to help give the support.
Okay, so you are confident that you are the man that can really cool tensions and bring everybody together and create a seamless communication between everybody. Like, you are confident in that.
Yeah, so I think that it starts with the head. Okay. Right, it starts with the chief, and we have to be able to showcase those skill sets to be able to bring everybody together. And it's not about me versus you. It's about looking at the individual that we're trying to take care of. And then we got to look at future state, and we have to work together to be able to resolve some of those pressing issues. Because again, it's not about you and it's not about me. It's about how we're going to serve the people of Shelby County. And I think that should be the driving force to be able to start tightening some of those up. Everything may not be seamless in the beginning, but once you start out, it'll come together. If you're a seamstress, you'll know that, as you started to sew, you're taking two pieces together and you're trying to bond them. And it takes time. And then I may not be the one that finished that product. If you're looking at another 8 years or 2 terms, somebody else will have to pick up where that person left off at. And then, but it's about starting the right way, changing the direction, and coming together as a unit to be able to take care of Shelby County.
All right. And you talk about talking with young people as well. So I do want to touch on education, because that was another issue you also emphasized in the beginning of this interview. So education in Shelby County, what would you kind of say where the status of it is right now, or what's the state of Shelby County education, and how would you move the needle forward or improve it or change anything about it?
And so I look at the current state because I still have kids that's in school. What I would say about that is that some of the teachers need to be paid a little bit more. I would say that as primary, because they're the one that toting our kids' futures into their hands. And then we need to be more innovative, have more of an active listening. I was just talking to a Latino community the other day, and they was talking about translation. And they didn't have a lot of people that can translate between the teacher and the person that was in the school, but she still graduated, ahead of her time. And she just talked about the large gap of opportunity within the school to be able for her to understand, or the teacher to understand what she's trying to convey back to her. And so I think it's about, being more sporadic and not just driving down and say, hey, this is what we need to do for education. We need to be more actively listening to the people that's actually there inside the facility, and be able to give them what they need to help to drive the kids towards the future. Right? We need to be able to invest, and I don't mean to get too far off topic. So I look at the securities, and we had a bond that became maturity this year. Well, last year, around in August, and then we went back in on it and took a partial. Now that security is almost 10 years out, and so if we would have, let that came to full maturity, then some of the innovation could have came to Shelby County. A better pay grade towards the kids and for the teachers could have came to Shelby County. We could have utilized those proper statements to be able to bring forward the things what the community is asking for.
Wow.
That's what we could have done.
Okay, yeah, and you're a businessman again, a finance guy, so you clearly are speaking to your strengths here. I want to also touch on bringing families to Shelby County and recruitment, because we are losing people and they're moving out and the population's declining. So what are kind of your strategies around making Shelby County a desirable place to live?
And so it all starts with the story, right? I'm a really good example of it. And I was telling my wife, I said, I may answer that question. She said, you gonna say that? And I love being transparent because that's who I am. I remember when we first moved here, I had $125 in my pocket.
Wow.
You know, we moved here on a dream. You know, I put my head down, I grew myself, developed myself, we worked. We did co-parenting to make sure that the kids always had somebody at home. And I can say today, you know, we're a proud business owner. You know, I don't like to, I guess I can say it. Sorry.
You're fine. His wife is off camera sitting and supporting.
I don't want to be able to tell our revenue, but over $500,000 a year, you know, based off of the dedication to what we did to be able to drive, you know, our family needs up. And so, you know, trying to bring families here, that would be some of the story, that there's still opportunity here in Shelby County. You know, if you look at some of the trends, whether they're micro or they're large, we will be able to see, you know, home development is coming up, affordable home. And I was just out today, riding through the community, trying to see an area where me and my team can get out and clean up some trash and help in the communities.
Yeah.
And I seen a lot of homes that were getting renovated. It was almost about 40 homes inside the community. And so just let them know there's still potential here. And if you have a family, you know, there's still safety within Shelby County to where you can. You know, there's still good educational portals for your kids here in Shelby County. You know, and just to reiterate to them that, you know, there is still a chance to be able to evolve here in Shelby County.
Okay, we are ending, we're on the last kind of little bit of this interview, so I have a couple more questions that I want to pump out here. You are a businessman. A lot of times when business people are elected in positions, a lot of people worry that the first step is going to be raising taxes, or property taxes. Is that at all anything that you are interested in doing?
No, that's not the first thing I'm looking at doing. Like I say, I always look at the data. I look at the top 10 contributors when it comes to property taxes, like FedEx, Kroger's, and some of those things. But some of those businesses are actually leaving. So I do not want to put that on the burden of the community or the county to be able to say we're going to spike this by, even if it's a 2.0% increase. You know, it's sort of devastating on the pockets of the Shelby County, especially when you look at, like, say, the things that's happening. And I think we went in the grocery store the other day, me and my wife, and just looking at a bag of chips was almost $3 and something. I come from a 25-cent era.
You're not lying.
And so I'm not looking to, you know, add burden towards that. And I seen some of the partner mayors within Shelby County looking at, you know, going in a different direction. And again, like I say, I think it's just pulling everybody in the same room and seeing what's actually worked best, even if it's in Memphis or it's in Bartlett and Cordova, and say, hey, what's actually working for you? And then we can try to apply that unilateral across the board. Okay. And not just, you know, jumping straight to jumping up property taxes and those type of things. It's not the first thing on my wheelhouse.
Okay, I think a lot of people would be relieved to hear that. Last two questions, and the first one of the two, your fundraising efforts and any endorsements that you can share with us.
And so fundraising is, I had to wait because I didn't want to jump the gun and just start asking people, you know, for money. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure that all my administration was buttoned up, make sure that I was going to be on the ballot. And I wanted to make sure everything was, you know, concrete and solid. And so we'll pick up, you know, our fundraising a little bit more, you know, next month. And PACs, I haven't really accepted any because I look at, like I said, I look at the data, I look at the key factors. If an organization, I just use for example, the 501c3 has gotten, you know, $800,000 to be able to help fund the community, then I just don't think it's fitting for me to circle back and, you know, and get a $8,200, you know, pack from them or $2,500 pack from them, and then say this is what I'm standing up in the community for, just to place a sign and those type of things. And I just, you know, just share a little bit about that. A couple of months ago, you know, some of my campaign advisors was pushing, you need more signs, you need more, you know, literature out. And we did, you know, and a lot of those mysteriously disappeared, went away. And so, you know, they was like, well, you need them, get them back state. And I was coming up to a community from a real good friend of mine. And like I told my advisor, I think it's more fitting because we knew there was going to be about 500 or 600 kids there. I think it's more fitting for me to be able to go out and feed the community because I understand what it's like. It may be their child first or last meal for the day. And so just taking those things to help drive a better community instead of just, passing out T-shirts with my face on it and, staking more signs and things like that. And so, but to answer your question in short, I haven't accepted any PACs. I got a couple of them sitting in my emails asking me, do I want to take on a PAC? But right now, I'm not looking to, take on in because I want to be able to be who I need to be for Shelby County without, a chain of ball tied to me saying, well, I gave you $8,000 and, this is my expectation from you or something like this. So I just want to be able to be, continue to run a clean campaign, all the way up into office and be able to step into what Shelby County actually need me to do for the people versus somebody that gave me a PAC to say, now we need you to do what we need you to do.
It's a humble approach, and it may take you very far. It's far different than some of our other candidates for this race. But lastly here, what makes you the better choice over the other candidates? Why do you think that what sets you apart from them and makes you just the man for the job? And
so I chewed on that a lot when I seen it. What makes me different, I'm not a traditional politician. I don't have any of those connections towards them. So the people is really, my focus point. And I think that what makes a world of difference, like I said, I talked about my heart when it comes to the people and want to be able to help the people out. And I'm no discredit to anybody else. For me, it's not about a popularity show. It's not about, putting on this big old event for somebody to see and say, oh, well, it's not about that for me. It's about the grit. It's about the grind. And that's what I'm about for Shelby County. And I think I think that's what separates me from and I understand I may be the lowest man on the totem pole, as they call it. But who knows? God has his perfect will. Again, like I said, I'm a minister, so I have a high level of faith when it comes to that. And again, I think that's what separates me, from the other candidates that want to be able to do this without having an official title already.
Okay, well said there, Mr. Qualls. Thank you so much for coming in, and I hope our viewers have a little bit more understanding of who you are and maybe get on board with supporting you as well. But thank you for watching. We are going to continue profiling key races. The elections are coming up. Early voting begins April 16th, and the primaries for Shelby County begin May 5th. Make sure you have everything in line so that you are eligible to vote. Mr. Qualls, thank you for coming in. Thank you for watching 24+.
Continue with us and watch free now on the 24 Plus app everywhere you stream.